everyone, and welcome to the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world show made for the fans by a fan. I am your host, as always, Richard Tiemann. This is Football and Nonsense. We did it. It's Thursday, Fan Nation. This is the first full week of new episodes for the Fan Show in 2018. And we were blessed with a great schedule. Looking at the calendar right now, my Kelly calendar that's on my wall next to the desk here in Fan Cave Studio. So the first was on a Monday and the second was on a Tuesday. So we didn't have a new year, new month on like a Wednesday or a Thursday where you got like a little bit of a tease of what's to come here from the Fan Cave. But no, we jumped right in. Tuesday, we had a fantastic start with a great guest, brand new guest, Kevin Goatee, who's a comedian and a sports fan himself. Great time talking to him. You can catch that episode as well as last night's episode, which had not one but two guests included on it. Former New York Jets linebacker Marvin Jones, now head coach of the Cedar Rapids Titans for the Indoor Football League. He was fresh off his official breaking news announcement that he will be taking the place as head coach for the Titans, and was basically letting us all know that he's looking forward to the opportunity. This is something that he's wanted to do for a while, build something from pretty much the ground up. He'll have his hands full there in Iowa, but great conversation. Talked a little bit about the Hall of Fame. Those finalists, of course, have been announced. And yeah, we're in full swing, January 2018. It's early into the month, early into the year, but when it comes to football and everything else, I mean, it really never sleeps, okay? And last night was no exception. Also, my friend Jeremy Funk, one of my best friends, made his first appearance on the show. He's in town on vacation. He made a appearance. He stopped by the Fan Cave, and we were talking some Seahawk football, so that's always fun, right? Especially right now where I was having a bit more fun than he was, just because of where Seattle sort of stands at the current time. He would like to see Darrell Bevell gone, keep Russell Wilson, see Pete Carroll step down to defensive coordinator, get rid of Tom Cable and get a new head coach in there, but that will probably never happen because Pete Carroll is, in Seattle, you worship the ground he walks on. And understandably so. He got you your only Super Bowl trophy. It's kind of like the girl that you date forever because she was your first kiss, right? I mean, it's this new experience. You've got all these butterflies in your stomach. She could hate everything that you like, but because there was that one thing that never have I ever, and it was a big deal, the first kiss, then you're gonna see it through for a little bit. But that's how it works. That's how it works in the world of sports. Winning cures all. He also mentioned last night that he felt like this was needed. They missed the playoffs, so now maybe the fans will speak up a little bit louder, and front office and management and the powers that be will take a look around and be like, what do we need to do to fix these problems? Because the problems just kept mounting with Seattle. You know, they barely made the playoffs the last couple of seasons. I mean, if it wasn't for a weak NFC West, they may have been on the outside looking in, and now they are. So here you go. He said discipline was needed, proper use of Jimmy Graham, a running game, but he wants them to keep Russell Wilson. Obviously, he said Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor are very irreplaceable. I said Doug Baldwin was irreplaceable because he's underrated and underappreciated, and he agreed with me, and we couldn't figure out why. And I'm not even a Seahawks fan. We know that. I'm very biased here on the show, but I leave that in the disclaimer at the top of the website and in the bio on my Twitter account. So tonight's episode, though, going to be a fantastic one. Had to wake up at the bright early hour of 7:45 to get ready for my guest, Adam Rank from NFL Network, Fantasy Live, Fantasy and Friends, all those places that you see when you tune in during the the 9 to 5 hours of NFL Network. He's there. He's buddies with James Coe, his counterpart there on Fantasy Live, and he's been on the show as well. So it's good times, good people, and we didn't even hardly talk any fantasy football. In case you missed it, last night there was kind of a big event going on over in Tokyo, and that'll take us into today's headlines. And the headlines portion of the program is brought to you by mybookie.ag. Bowl season is here, and so is postseason football. That's right, playoff football. So that means it's time to get in on the action with MyBookie. Are you sick and tired of getting the runaround when you ask for a payout? I know I am. You join a fantasy league and you've got this, maybe a PayPal account, or you all pay to one person, the commissioner, and then you win and then you don't get paid right away. It stinks. And I'm guilty of it. I'm a commissioner, okay? I know that the struggle is real. It's hard to run things sometimes. So if you have a problem with that, if I'm preaching to the choir, then sign up for mybookie.ag today and get paid fast when you win. Not if, when, because MyBookie is one of the most trusted places to take your sports betting action. MyBookie is your hookup for all your betting needs, and you can even deposit using Bitcoin. That's right, that crazy cryptocurrency that's taken the nation by storm and conquering the world. Bitcoin. So where you bet is just as important as who you're betting on. If you want to make money betting the bowl games or the playoffs, you got to go to mybookie.ag. They're the only site that I'd recommend. I trust them, but you don't have to take my word for it, even though by now, Fan Nation, you really should. 6 out of my 9 bold predictions, the 10th one pending. Come on now. You can take my word for it. It's time. It's time. It's okay. So I trust them. So should you. They have the odds on every matchup as well as in-game live betting and all this season's NFL and bowl games. Join now at MyBookie, and they will match your deposit up to a 50% bonus. Use your promo code, which is the F.A.N Show, to activate this offer. You play, you win, you get paid if you visit mybookie.ag today. If you're going to bet, they're the only place to do it, and that is mybookie.ag. So the headlines are that last night there was a happening in Tokyo, Japan. New Japan Wrestling is the name. Wrestling's the game, as it was Alpha versus Omega. Chris Jericho versus Kenny Omega. A dream match, a cross-promotional, if you want to call it that, type of matchup, but Wrestle Kingdom, which is their equivalent of WrestleMania, this thing started at 11 p.m. Pacific time, so we're talking 2 a.m. on the East Coast, and man, it was probably the longest event like that I've ever seen. I fell asleep after the first match or two on the card, and I was like, I'm going to miss this. I was like, should I set an alarm? Like, when do I think they'll come on? Maybe 2 o'clock Pacific time? So I was going to set an alarm. I've been getting up at 4 in the morning every other day to go to my job at 5 in the morning, and so my internal body clock wakes me up at about 3:55, and there they are, Jericho and Omega. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm watching this on my phone right now on a live stream, and this is happening. It's 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm watching a dream match. So it was very, very weird for me, very different experience. It was my first New Japan Wrestling experience, so that was something. I thought that great production. I never know what to expect when it's not WWE, because they're the kind of the world leader. They are the bar, pun intended, for wrestling, professional wrestling. But this was great. It's a lot of action, less talking, less gimmicks. You perform in the ring, and that's your product. Your product is the in-ring performance. And I know a lot of people, and I've made this argument myself, I'm just as guilty. Let's talk about cultural differences for a little bit. There was there was an interview I was listening to the other day, and it was Keegan-Michael Key from Key and Peele. And he said that, he watched a lot of British television growing up as a kid because of where he lived. He got more British TV than he did American TV. And part of the reason why British actors or Canadian actors or Australian actors are able to do the American accent so well is because they grew up watching American TV, because it was the only type of television that was really readily available and easy to consume back for certain generations. Now, of course, you can tap into pretty much any television program at any time from any country in the world that you want, but back then that wasn't the case. America was television, it was drama, it was soap opera, it was everything. So all around the world, people are watching Americans do American things, and they're picking up on the mannerisms and on the attitudes and the accents. That's not being done on the flip side. America's not watching British and Canadian television picking up on all of that. So you have these British actors that are they can just speak without an accent, like they're breathing. It comes so naturally to them because they grew up with that. So when you look at a product like New Japan Wrestling, even I'd go so far as to say NXT, where there's more wrestling and less gimmick and less drama and soap opera, right? And you think, why is this not how it is? Why aren't we just letting these guys let the product be what they do in the ring, as opposed to cutting promos and cheesy gimmicks and character development, which I kind of like, but it's because that's what I grew up with, all right? We're right back down to what we were exposed to and when we were exposed to it. The Attitude Era was one of the most defining moments in all of professional sports entertainment when it came to wrestling. It changed the game, and because of what it was around the world, that was kind of what we viewed as how it's supposed to be. So New Japan is not anywhere near the type of product that WWE is. It is in Japan, but it's not in the rest of the world, where all over the globe people love, watch, and consume WWE. So there is sort of an uncanny expectation that people have that they secretly want what the WWE gives you, although a thing like New Japan is the better, like it's how in my mind it should be. And Adam Rank and I talk about that. It's crazy to think just how different certain cultures can be with what should be the same thing. Great match. It went 36 minutes and 34 seconds, I believe, was the official time. And wow, it was crazy. The moves, it was so fast, it was so fluid. It's like these guys had been in the ring together for years. And it was just an incredible match. It really was. It was a great product. They had pyro, they had lights, they had all of this, and I loved it. It was everything that I grew up loving about WWE, but without the cheesy promos and gimmicks. And honestly, I wasn't complaining. I really wasn't. The Miz is your ideal guy for what the WWE has and always will be, which is great performer in ring, but can do everything else that you need a guy to do as far as promos, gimmicks, and characters. Where a guy like Shinsuke Nakamura, AJ Styles, Chris Jericho, Kenny Omega, Finn Balor, those are guys that their talent is in ring. And Jericho is great on the mic, yes, but I mean, even if you took away what he does on the mic, that dude can wrestle the hell out of anything. And it was great. So props to Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho for we're 4 days into the new year, and they've already got what people will probably call the match of the year. Dream match. There's only a few matches that could even compare to something like this, which, maybe AJ Styles versus HBK. It's not two guys in their prime. It's two guys that are coming from different brands that want to compete against each other before it's too late. Could we have seen this 10 years ago for Jericho? Probably. 20 years ago? Probably. But for Kenny Omega, I think this was the prime time for him, and Jericho's only gotten better and only gotten more popular. Not really a whole lot has happened around the world of the NFL, and that's all right. Head coaching interviews and vacancies are being filled as we speak. Nothing's been made official. There's talks about, of course, the Hall of Fame finalists. But Adam Rank and I, we had a great conversation early this morning. We talked about the Royal Rumble, Wrestle Kingdom, and New Japan, Omega versus Jericho. And then we finally got into some fantasy football, who he believes you should be looking to draft number 1 overall next year. And then if they are not available, who your next option should be. He even gives you a second-round pick as well. So we're going to go to our commercial break. And when we come back, my one-on-one with none other than Adam Rank of NFL Network. Don't go anywhere. We've got more of the Fan Show coming up right after this.
This is The Sheet.
Gets me all revved up. My face is now red. My ears are just freaking boiling.
He's so raw that Sky hates him.
Yeah, he had 51 touchdowns, 4,900 total yards.
I know y'all like that, but I got to run. And only in Alabama that could happen, I have to say.
They're so good, man. They would win the Big Ten if they were in the Big Ten.
You could be doing something vision-based in front of you and reach down and grab a handful of insane goodness.
Give it to him. Kudos. I'm clapping like a golfer. Very good, Johnny. I'm proud of you.
Wow, you guys agree on something again? I'm very impressed. You ever had a bad week? You know, just you walk outside, step in a puddle, like right when you walk outside. I mean, how does a puddle right outside your house? Or you stand on the curb and somebody drives by and splashes water up on you? Or it's just raining on you, not anyone else?
I will tell you, before you go any further, I cannot hear Chad when he speaks.
Good. You're listening to The Sheet, man. I don't really know what we're doing.
Every Saturday morning, 8 to 10 a.m. right here on WBLZ Sports.
Whether it be your industrial, commercial, or residential needs, Gen Service is the electrical contractor for you. The Gen Service team has the expertise, commitment, and educational years to help you solve all your electrical concerns. They have you in their best interest with helpful suggestions to accommodate your every want. Give them a call, no matter the size of the job, at 740-438-7173. Mention WBLZ Sports, and you'll get a discount. That's Gen Service, 740-438-7173.
This is Nick Ciccarelli, the mad scientist of sports. Join me and Dr. D, Derek Jones, live every Saturday night, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Pacific, for the Mad Scientist Sports Lab. The big intellect, the experiments on the chalkboard, and the guest subjects will be rolling in. Mad Scientist Sports Lab, only on WBLZ Sports, where we got balls.
Doug Peffer Painting and Pressure Washing. He has over 30 years of painting experience. He's interior, exterior, commercial, or residential. Doug Peffer covers it all. Is your house looking ugh? We'll call on Doug. Doug Peffer Painting and Pressure Washing, 404-966-3361. Mention WBLZ Sports and get a special We've Got Balls discount. That's Doug Peffer Painting and Pressure Washing, 404-966-3361.
Check out Thursday Night Tailgate, where NFL legends live on. We bring you 5 NFL legends every week, sharing their stories and insights, plus our spotlight on the positive. Hear which players are doing great things in their communities. Now on WBLZ Sports Talk Radio and WBLZSports.com.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, joining me now, NFL Network's cerebral assassin and the best in the world at what he does. It is Adam Rank. Welcome back, Mr. Rank. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. I appreciate the opportunity to come back and talk with you. And I always enjoy when you're setting something up with somebody and you're like, hey, I got to finish the Jericho Omega match. And you're like, yeah, no, totally cool. I finished it this morning. So I do appreciate it. So somebody can empathize with me.
I was actually going to say that, yours is probably, of all the pre-recorded segments that I've done and people that get stalled for one reason or another, oh, yeah, I had to pick up my kids from soccer and that took longer than I thought, or I got held up at work. Hearing somebody say, yeah, I should be good to go, I'm just finishing up Jericho Omega, I think is probably hands down the greatest reason to not show up on time to something ever.
But we did make it on time though. I snuck in under the wire, but I had to find. We did have some conference. I don't want to pull back the curtain too much, but we had some trouble finding a conference room. One of my colleagues is allowing me to use his office because I don't have an office. They don't think that highly of me.
Oh wow!
But they do. Listen, I'm happy to be out amongst the people, which is probably where I belong. But I think we're all squared away right now. What a match that was, though. I mean, I think we talked about it briefly, but it really delivered.
Oh yeah, it did. And he has his podcast, Talk is Jericho, and he put up the special for the Wrestle Kingdom preview yesterday, and I listened to that in the morning while I was at work, and just hearing how it all came to be. I mean, some of the best things have some of the simplest origins, and just hearing that this idea got pitched and they didn't really know sort of how to run with it or where to start, and then everything kind of snowballed and it turned into what obviously culminated at 4 a.m. this morning. But oh man, it's crazy how that stuff can come about.
No, absolutely. And it was, I haven't listened to that yet. But I will obviously get around to that. But yeah, it's been pretty cool. And it's one of those things too. I don't know. It really does set aside like people who are wrestling fans as opposed to like, I'm a fan of the WWE or I like to watch Raw or whatever. Cause I work with somebody who I don't get mad, but it's funny. It amuses me because people will be like, well, this guy, like, he's a wrestling fan. It's like, you know what? I'm going to have to stop you right there. He's a WWE fan. And even then, he only watches the show The Miz is on. So don't confuse it like he's some wrestling aficionado. And there's a young lady who does the Around. She's the producer on the Around the NFL podcast with Rosie and Henzas and Sessler and Westling. And she's actually the biggest wrestling fan in the building. I actually point to her. I'm like, no, you go talk to her. She knows more. Like, she knows more than I do. Like, I feel like I do okay. Like, I walk around in my DIY shirt and go to NXT house shows, but she's by far and away a bigger fan than me. But yeah, it was cool. Like I'm a little remiss that I wasn't able to watch it live. I feel like I took the easy way out. I get to work around 6. I go to, like, I'm not trying to humble brag, but I go to the gym in the morning, and I just know the way my schedule is going to work out. I have a 2-year-old, so I get her to bed, and then I usually just go to bed because I get up early. And so I'm like, I'm going to watch it at work, which is what I've been doing. Don't tell anybody. Don't tell Roger that I've been watching Wrestle Kingdom at work. I've been kind of bouncing around. I'll watch all of them, but I had to go watch. Actually, the first thing I did watch was Omega Jericho. So I'm not proud of it, but I'm watching the main event first because there's another main event that I get to watch. So it's not like I'm skipping ahead to the good part.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing about this is that, this was my first time dealing with New Japan Wrestling. I've, watched TNA and Ring of Honor and other things like that. So it was such a culture shock to see some of the differences. And, this was a WrestleMania caliber match, which is kind of easy to say, but at the same time, this match went, I think the official time was like 36 minutes and 34 seconds. You're not going to get that at Mania, short of either 2 out of 3 falls match or an Iron Man match. And for them to do that, just 2 guys in a no disqualification match and put on a clinic without any gimmicks or interference, it could only be done on a brand like New Japan.
Yeah, could you imagine Roman Reigns and Triple H trying to slog through
I try
35? Like, that would be, it's terrible. Like, WWE matches have to be like they try to make Roman Reigns matches that long, and Reigns is a good wrestler. Like, I'm not one of those guys who wants to just S on him all the time just for reasons. But I think they put him into matches that are way too long that you could probably boil down and do that. And I'm with you, though. I do have to say I'm also with you. This is kind of I've watched big New Japan matches after the fact. Like, I've sought them out on YouTube or anything like that. But this was the first time that there has been a New Japan event where I know I'm still not watching it live, but I feel like close enough. Like, where I'm watching it day of. Like, this is the first time for me, so I'm in the same boat with you. Because I'm more of a Ring of Honor, WWE, NXT. I don't watch as much TNA anymore now that now that Eric's out of it.
Yeah.
Like, look at me being a hipster, Eric Young. I still love Mr. Spectacular. He used to train at my gym, so.
Oh wow.
I still got some. Dude, that guy is massive. Like it's no joke. You're like, that guy's pretty big. I never talked to him. I always wanted to, and it's like we follow each other on Twitter, type of thing. Where I think he's just like, well, he's friends of people who I know, so I should. So, and I always, you look different. He doesn't look different in the gym. I look different in the gym, and you see him, and a lot of people go up and talk to him about Big Brother as well. So I'm like, oh, he's getting it from all angles. I just want to leave him alone. But I guess that's a long-winded way to say, like, yeah, I'm really getting into New Japan too.
Yeah, I could see that. It becomes very addicting to see a product that has more action than talking, which is something that obviously you're going to get with WWE. But it was interesting because I had James Coe on the show a while back, and we started talking wrestling. It always seems to come up. You can pick out a wrestling fan anywhere, and he's just like, well, I used to watch it a lot. And I was like, wait, used to? And you work side by side with Rank? I was like, I don't know how that flies on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, but he loves the Attitude Era and everything like that, so it fits. We're both Attitude Era kids, so it makes sense. And it's like, I'm the guy who still watches it, and like people from high school or whatever, or even elementary school, are like, oh, you still watch it? Okay, like a lot of people have moved past it, and you're like, yeah, everything I loved as a kid, be it Star Wars or wrestling, I'm still kind of into.
Who's your pick to win the Rumble, both the men's and now the women's? We have two of them this year.
This is the one thing, is that the women's Royal Rumble winner has to be Asuka. I mean, anything other than, although it's a way to preserve her streak, and I think it'd be cool if she has to kind of go through everybody. Like if there was some sort of fluky win, like whenever you have Royal Rumbles like that, I think it's important. Like the realism would be like, if you're all those women, you have to be like, look, we all hate each other and we want to win, but we have to eliminate Nia Jax right now because we can't have her win. Like if we get down and she's one of the last four, like we're probably not going to get her out. So everybody should team up and get her out of the mix first. And I would like to see somebody like Becky Lynch win it. So you can go out and have somebody kind of chasing it. I think Asuka needs to chase for a while and kind of go through people. Although it's funny that Asuka, when she debuted, she had like a 20-minute match where she was eating Emma's offense nearly the entire time. And then basically she has a squash match over Little Miss Bliss. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, stop doing this, S. But it's going to be Asuka. I would like it to be Becky Lynch, but whatever. I do think on the men's side, I think anybody who fantasy books things, like, and this is the thing, like, I will watch Star Wars, like I watched The Last Jedi. I'm happy to go into the theater and just enjoy the ride and be like, okay, I kind of had some ideas of things I wanted to have happen, but it's not enough to ruin it for me. Like, it's not like I didn't walk out of the theater upset. In fact, I was quite excited to walk out of the theater. But on the opposite side of the coin, if a wrestling match isn't booked the way that I think it should be booked, then I'm pissed. It doesn't matter what it could be. Like, it took me a long time. The Seth Rollins cash-in was something that was super amazing. But because that's not what I thought was going to happen, it took me a while to kind of come around. Although, no, that's a bad example because I was kind of into that. That's a bad example of it blowing up. But like other times, Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania 30, like not winning over. Although that's different because that's Cena winning when he should have. I don't know a good example of, but like if it's not booked the way I want it to, I'll be upset. So I think a lot of us are hoping that the Royal Rumble winner. The Royal Rumble winner is going to be Nakamura, and then Nakamura, AJ Styles. You can give them 35 minutes at Mania, and it would probably shut the whole show down. That's, I think, what we want. But I read something, and I'm not going to take credit for this, but it's Brandon Stroud. He's the writer of The Best and Worst on Up Rocks, and he wrote a thing like it should be The Miz who wins it. I'm like, Miz, Lesnar? And he goes, no. But then the Miz challenges AJ Styles. And I'm like, oh, that would be interesting because that would piss us off because we all want it to be Nakamura. But for the Miz to do it, like that would be pretty incredible. And it would probably be a pretty good match because the Miz has been a pretty good worker over the last couple of years. So that's what I'm thinking right now.
Yeah, the Miz got voted, I think it was Rolling Stone's Superstar of the Year. Well deserved. I mean, if you look at what the WWE is and all the different checkpoints that a superstar needs to meet, and he not only met those, he exceeded expectations, I thought. But it's the problem that they're in right now is that they've dug themselves into this hole where you've got 2 pay-per-views tops, if you count the single branded one in between the Rumble and Mania, where you have all these guys that realistically could and should win the Rumble for various reasons, but yet you look at who they would potentially be facing, and then it eliminates like all of them. Like I would love on Raw, yeah, The Miz, Finn Balor. I think even Samoa Joe would be a great choice. But then over on SmackDown, you've got Shinsuke. Probably too soon for Bobby Roode, but everybody wants the dream match between Styles and Nakamura. So it really disappoints me because the rumor that I've heard is that Cena is supposed to win and get his 17th, and it's just like, really, you're gonna waste the last year on that and pretty much pick up right where you left off, where you've got another part-time champion, and I'm sure that he would show up a lot more than Lesnar, or maybe lose it right away. But it's just the fact that, you know, you've got all this young talent dying to get up to that next tier, and you're just shoving them right back down. And for the women's side, somebody said that the rumor is Ronda Rousey, which as long as it's not a guy, I guess I'm okay with that, because the last 2 times that they've done something specifically for the women, Santino winning Mrs. WrestleMania, Ellsworth grabbing the briefcase for Carmella, it's like they're building this women as their own brand, their own part of the show, to be equal with the men, and then they just squash it. They just crap on it. And so I think it needs to be one of the originals. Like you said, I love your pick of Becky Lynch. I would vote for Nia Jax. Obviously, it would be great for Charlotte, but she is the champion. Asuka's the sexy pick, but I feel like she has her streak. I'd like to see them give it to someone else so that this moment could kind of be theirs and cement their legacy for this women's revolution that we're seeing.
No, I agree with all that. Yeah, that is disappointing when they do that. When Ellsworth grabbed the briefcase, and I know they tried to kind of do a redo on SmackDown where Carmella grabbed it herself, and you're like, nah, too late, guys. The genie's out of the bottle. You know, the milk has been spilled. Like, you can't go back and relive that. And it just, somebody needs to be able to be like, bro, bad idea. Like, don't do that. And but I agree with all that you're saying, like all these young guys who are ready and willing to go over and do things. And I know a lot of times the critics will point to Cena and be like, well, he draws and he does this. And I'm like, yeah, but so many times they nuke the momentum of somebody so hard. And I think number one, Bray Wyatt, there was no reason for him to lose at WrestleMania 30. Like John Cena will sell T-shirts to children forever. Like him losing to Bray Wyatt is not going to do anything. But when you have the spooky boogeyman who never wins, like he's never going to be affected. And even now, like with Rusev, like I can't wait to see how they ruin Rusev Day. Like they're so embarrassed when a guy gets over that they can't handle it. And they're like, well, we're going to make Rusev lose to Cena in 30 seconds. In a you know, a flag on a pole match or whatever it's going to be. And I think luckily for us though, because Wrestle Kingdom had become such a big deal that they had to put Finn Balor with the club, and they're like, okay, so we're going to do this. We're going to try to combat, you know, try to jump on some of the momentum that Wrestle Kingdom is gaining. Although I would love to see. I wish that the Bullet Club would slap them with a cease and desist. Like, you can't – how can you use the name The Club, right? If we can't sit there – and I'm saying we. I'm speaking for the Bullet Club.
Yeah.
If they can't use the Too Sweet, and they'll probably slap a an injunction on them doing super kicks too next. Then why can you have two guys in a thing called the club, and even some of their merch has the little like the stripes on it, where you're like, how is this not a violation? Like, how is this possible? But whatever. We're getting in the weeds on that one, but it's all in good fun, I guess.
As much as I think the matchup, and I know that AJ Styles can sell you, the ingredients on the back of a box of Wheaties in ring, but it would. I honestly can't vouch for how good or not good this match would be, and that's why it's so intriguing to me. But the thought of Rusev winning the Rumble, not only would it break the internet, I think the world as we know it would probably explode, or at least stop for a brief moment, because he's been that guy on the SmackDown roster that you don't understand it, but you're loving every single minute of it.
Oh, it's amazing. And he's also on Total Divas. Like he's got a pretty decent storyline on Total Divas. So it's all, he's got everything going.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I said, there's the people that I want to win every year, and then the people that I think should win, and then all of a sudden WWE and Vince and creative go, yeah, you're not getting either of those. So here's Roman Reigns and here's Cena for the third time, and it's just like, oh, you did it again. Okay. So, well, that's the wrestling talk. I feel like because, it's so hard to get you on the show, you do the fantasy talk. We can talk a moment fantasy. I heard that you said you're going to take Alvin Shinsuke Nakamura number 1 overall next year.
I am. And it was kind of met with a lot of criticism, which I'm not sure I understand where it's stemming from. I think number one, I don't want to be this guy who's like, I only play PPR, so that's what I'm coming. And like that person sucks if somebody does. I play all formats, all right. But even so, okay, Alvin Kamara was the number 3 running back, RB3 in PPR. He was the RB5 in standard, and everybody's like, well, I'm not going to do it if Mark Ingram's there. Like, why are you not doing it with what did Mark Ingram do to him this year? Like he was the RB3 or 5 with Ingram there. Like they're a tandem. It's like that offense works with 2 running backs. They're better. Like the game where Ingram got hurt, I think it was week 14, where Ingram got hurt, like Kamara wasn't as good. Like he needs that kind of hammer in there, just the same way like Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown can both be, the top of their position, but it doesn't hurt either one of them. That actually probably makes them better. And I think the same thing is happening with the Saints, is that offense is prolific enough that you can go out there and get the superstars, Ingram, Kamara, Michael Thomas, and still do pretty well. And again, they went into this season with Adrian Peterson. They had too many guys, and it didn't happen until week 3 is when Kamara started to go off. And now you're going to have an entire offseason to work your magic. And it's Sean Payton. It's not a fluke. It's not some fluky coach. It's not Jeff Fisher. So he's going to go out there. He's going to work with them. And running backs traditionally are much better in their second season. Eric Dickerson set the NFL single-season rushing record in his second year. CJ 2K became 2K in his second season. Le'Veon Bell was better in his second season. David Johnson was better in his second season. LaDainian Tomlinson was better in his second season. Emmitt Smith, Barry Sanders. Like I could go on and on. Unless your coach was Jeff Fisher or John Fox, traditionally you get better during your second season. So I don't understand. And hey, listen, if you want to come in and you want to be like, I would prefer this player, fine. I will hear that argument, but I'm going to have some foresight. I want to look ahead. I don't want to look back. And I know a lot of people are like, Le'Veon Bell for me, dog. I'm like, okay, listen. Le'Veon Bell touched the ball 400 times this season, okay? And there's a possibility he could play 3 more games. And in those games, he could touch the ball 30 times, which means he could end up with close to or exceed 500 touches. I don't want any part of that.
Wow.
I'm sorry. And the Steelers used him this year in the mind of like, we're never going to use this guy again. Like, we're fine. Like, he's a free agent. We'll let him walk. We'll see what happens. They were using him like it was a car that they're like, you know what? I'm getting a new car in 6 months. I'm not changing the oil anymore. F it. I'm driving crazy. I'm going to e-brake stop. I'm going to do whatever. So, and David Johnson, but don't forget about David Johnson. I'm not forgetting about David Johnson. I'm also not forgetting that his coach just retired. His quarterback just retired. Who knows what Larry Fitzgerald's going to do? Now we don't know. What if they bring in a defensive-minded coach? And I know, like, it seems weird that somebody wouldn't use David Johnson. I agree. It also seemed weird last season when Jeff Fisher wasn't getting the most out of Todd Gurley. And I think that he could be headed towards a similar type of situation, so much so that I don't want to deal with it. I'm just going to go with the guy who's young, who's in an offense I know is going to flourish once again, and that's my thing. And if you don't want to pick him, don't pick him. That's like, you're not offending me. I'm just going to go with my guy.
Yeah, it's crazy. Some people will just get so overly offended and triggered just because you don't want to pick who they want to pick, and it's like so that means that you have more of a likelihood of picking them because I don't want to pick them. And it's funny because there was another name that I thought for sure that you would say, and you even excused them when you name dropped this particular coach, but fantasy comeback player of the year, if there is such a thing, has got to go to Todd Gurley. Is this the Todd Gurley that we can expect, barring any freak injury, from here through the future, as long as Sean McVay continues to do Sean McVay things with that offense?
No, 100%. I think this is going to be the Todd Gurley that we see. Anybody who saw him play at Georgia knows that this is the running back that he's capable of being. Sean McVay, a lot of times you want to ignore coach speak because coaches lie, but Sean McVay was pretty spot on when he said that he wanted to use, Gurley as a receiver out of the backfield. So I think that there's a pretty good chance he's going to have this kind of production each and every year. He's like a LaDainian Tomlinson type where he can run in between the tackles. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can do all sorts of crazy things. I don't know if he can throw the ball. And that's fine. Like there's a yin and a yang, like who you want to pick. Like if I'm sitting in the number 2 hole and, somebody takes Kamara ahead of me, I'm not going to be bummed to take Todd Gurley. Like this isn't a dismissal of Todd Gurley. And listen, if your league will allow me to have both Gurley and Kamara, I would be happy to do it. I just, you got to go Highlander here. There can be only one. I just think that Kamara is going to have a bigger breakout next season now that he has kind of his fill of the NFL and kind of understands what he needs to do to get himself into, not that he wasn't into shape, but like you learn more going into your second season. I think both those guys are excellent options. I don't have any negative criticism. Like I don't have any sort of hesitation for Gurley at all, but it's like, well, I got to pick one. And maybe it's hot takey to go with Kamara, so it makes people, hit the like button on my tweet or whatever. So maybe there's a little bit of that going on. Like, listen, I'm not gonna shy away from that, but I do like it. The one thing I do want to change though, and I was thinking about my top 5 and who I'm gonna go. The one guy, like I have him now at number 5, but I think I'm gonna move him to number 3 at some point. But I don't want to give it away at the store too much. But DeAndre Hopkins, like if you want to be forward thinking, not that Antonio Brown's going to take a step back or anything like that, but you got to figure out what DeAndre Hopkins was doing and what he could do in a full season with Deshaun Watson and be like, you know what? This might be the guy that goes 3rd overall. If I'm in a PPR league, he might go 1st overall. Like remember a couple of years ago, it was unheard of to take Antonio Brown 1st. And everybody was like, you're crazy. You're this, you're that. Because we still have, some of those people who are like, I got to take a running back no matter what. And I was like, that's fine. But DeAndre Hopkins could be the guy. And I like his, him and Deshaun Watson. Bro, I would almost think about it because I have a league that puts so much emphasis on a quarterback. Like you can't win your league unless your quarterback play is on par. And I'm like, damn, I might just do a stack. I might just try to get the DeAndre Hopkins, Deshaun Watson, which seems unheard of to take a quarterback in the second round. But if your league is weighted this way, because our league is weighted this way, it's like I've been ridiculous not investing this much in a quarterback in this league. The first year I got away with it and won the league. Last year I didn't win it because I started Mariota over Dak because Dak was supposed to play just a half against the Giants, and Mariota broke his leg against the Jags, which sucked.
Oh, wow.
I would have won that league too because I lost by like 4 points. But then this year I had Deshaun Watson, and I was pretty cocky about not backing him up with a good enough player. Or I had Derek Carr, who was not. That should have been a segment. I should have pitched that for NFL Network that I go on Total Access every week and yell at David Carr if his brother blows. Like, what are you doing? Be like, just getting this off my chest. And David's got a pretty good sense of humor. He might have actually gone for it because he's a pretty funny guy. But I guess, what am I saying? What was I talking about? DeAndre Hopkins, him and Watson, 1 and 2. First, second round. Do it. Do it, everybody. I recommend it.
That is a bold statement from anyone else, but this is Adam Rank, and he is our resident fantasy expert, the best in the world at what he does. There were so many injuries. We saw so many ragtag groups of misfits go into the playoffs. I know I was one of them. I had Case Keenum as my quarterback, Mark Ingram, and then I think Corey Coleman were like my top names in the key positions there. Not to say that Mark Ingram was any slouch, but when you consider what was in the top 10 on draft day, he probably wasn't. So,
no, he was like, I think he was an RB19.
Yeah. So it was a crazy season, a wild finish. I know for you because your championship matchup, you pleaded with your opponent to bench Le'Veon Bell because Antonio Brown was out for you. And
only fair.
Only fair. You're right. So next season, I know that I pitched this to your counterpart, James Coe, about the fantasy updating its style. He said that this could be done if they did half scoring by the half. But I said, injuries happen in football, and so we should be able to adapt accordingly to injuries. And I think the idea I've always had is that if you have a quarter, because there's got to be rules and there's always going to be certain circumstances. So the rules and circumstances are as follows, is that if you have it's Sunday morning, the games have started, and your quarterback gets hurt in the second quarter, you can plug in your backup QB if they have not yet started play. And the same thing goes for if they're doing poorly in the game. Got to be by halftime, but you can make that switch, and then once you make that switch, it's done and it's locked in. Or if the second half starts, then those points are what you're going to get. Do you think this is blasphemy, or is this something that could essentially put more into the strategy factor of playing fantasy football?
You got to stop this, S. Come on now. It happens. Sorry, like that's part of the thing. Like I would love for you to run a sports book in Vegas. Be like, hey man, like I know I put a bunch of money on the Steelers, but Roethlisberger got hurt. Is there any way I can change this? Like it's one of those things. Like if you have a quarterback, I think let's use the Steelers as an example. Like if the Steelers in the second round of the playoffs, if they're playing the Jags, if they lose Ben Roethlisberger, they'll probably end up losing that game. So it seems to add some realism to your fantasy matchup that if your quarterback goes down, then you're probably going to lose this game. And it's unfortunate, and hopefully it happens after halftime or whenever you've got a couple, maybe a touchdown or two under your belt, and you can find a way to sneak out a win. But it is what it is, and it's kind of the human element. I prefer to it's too much. Then you got to pay attention all the time, and I know, like, it's easy for us. But think about your friends, like, who aren't as into it. It would give you a decided advantage, but it would also start turning people off to the product, I think, because it's like, if you're a casual, like, I like having people in leagues who are casual, who are just happy enough to pay their money, go to the draft, wherever you have it, be it in Vegas or Buffalo Wild Wings or whatever. And they're not quite as hype on the waiver wire, but you can go out and you can smoke them, and you go to the playoffs every year and you get some money back and you're fine. I don't want to turn them off by making it even more complicated to the point where they're like, I never want to do this again. You got to get those fish in. You got to kind of lure them into the boat, but you don't want them. You don't want to scare them away. You don't want to just start throwing grenades into the ocean, because then they just flock. It works once, but then they flock away.
Yeah. And I will agree with everything that you said, because I have seen it from that side as well. Part of the other restrictions that I thought of was, well, maybe it should only be if you handcuff your QB like you do a running back, where, if you have Ben Roethlisberger's backup and he gets hurt before the half, you can plug in Landry Jones. But part of what
I've seen people, they do a team QB. You know what I'm saying? Like if you have Roethlisberger, like you don't draft Roethlisberger, you draft Pittsburgh quarterback. So every point that comes from the Pittsburgh quarterbacks, that's what you get.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I didn't know that. That's something new on me. But part of the inspiration for this idea was, and I know that it takes a certain level or lack thereof of person to do this, but people wishing injury upon players, and sometimes it might just be out of the heat of the moment, but just I was like, they're people, and this is their livelihood. I don't want to wish injury on anybody, no matter how much of a Niners fan I am, and I hate the Seahawks and Cowboys. It's like I'm not going to wish injury on Russell Wilson or Dak Prescott. So it was kind of one of those things where maybe we can stop some of the hate here year in and year out if we don't have to hope that another guy's player gets a season-ending injury.
No, I mean you don't want to wish that. Not even for no reason. There's like absolutely no reason for that. I know people do it, and it always kind of bums me out.
Yeah.
And it's not even in a fun way. Like I said that one time, I think I was watching a game. This was a couple of years ago, and this guy's running out, and I was just joking, like, "Oh, break his leg!" And this like 12-year-old's like, "Break his leg!" I'm like, you know what, Grant? I'm joking. Like, it's metaphorical. Like, it's not like I don't want to end his career. I'm just saying I was doing it as more of a metaphorical thing.
Yeah, and they don't know the difference yet at certain ages, so you got.
Yeah, they're like, oh, I'm like, no, that wasn't cool. Mr. Adam is an a-hole.
Well, he is Mr. Adam Rank, and it's been a fun conversation, to say the very least. The fact that you had to finish up with Omega Jericho. We started out talking about wrestling and the Rumble, and then finished up with fantasy football. So are you going to go on the Rock and Wrestling Rager presented by Chris Jericho?
I would love to, but I don't think it's going to work out schedule-wise.
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise, I would do that for sure. And I mean, hopefully, maybe if Travis Barker had one, I would do it. But no. Yeah, I have the Scott Rayner tattoo. That's the problem. That's why we haven't really gotten along. No, I'm just joking. No, I would love to go, and that's a cool thing. Like, I've always wanted to do one of those. They always seem like fun. Have you ever done anything like that?
Never been on a cruise before, and the fact that this is obviously Jericho does well at anything that he sets out to do, and for him to host a cruise and have rock music and wrestling on it, and all these different comedians and hosts of podcasts and the superstars from yesteryear of WWE, it's like, wow, I think he's going to knock this thing out of the park. So it was the idea of never been on a cruise. Here's this one. Seems like a perfect fit. Why not? I mean, the only thing that they could do better is to have, like the Rock wrestle on there, which would play to my nostalgia, or Shawn Michaels, and then have like Blink-182 or the Foo Fighters be some of the musical acts. That's pretty much the only other thing that I would have said, well, if you could, but I won't.
Right. No, I'm with you. I wish I want to make it happen, but it's one of those things. Hopefully he'll do one that's not during the middle of the football season. I think that would be the big thing. That would really be beneficial. Or I don't know, maybe if I could somehow, if it was work related, I could probably swing it. So we'll see what happens. But unfortunately, if he ever does one in the spring, I think I'm going to do it.
All right, well, you'll have to let me know. But until then, obviously, there's still work to be done. You said even though fantasy season's over that you're still busy, which is why you're in to work at 6 in the morning. So I'll let you get back to it. But, hey, thank you so much again. It was a great, fun conversation. We'll have to do it again.
This is great. I hope people didn't tune in and be like, oh, they're going to get into the weeds in fantasy football. And then we talk 20 minutes about New Japan. Like, that's not even like, you could be a wrestler. Like, I talked about this at the top, but like, you could be like, I don't know who Kenny Omega is. And you know what? Shame on you if you don't. Go seek him out, because he's amazing. Because his finisher looked, honestly, I don't know if we said this while we were getting set up or if I said this on the show, but like, the one-winged angel looks like it should murder somebody. Like
Yeah, it does.
I don't know how he doesn't kill people.
Yeah.
Like, it looks even more painful than the pedigree. Like, it's one of those things like, how are people not getting seriously hurt? But
yeah,
you know.
Yeah, no, I agree. So we'll have to have you back on the week before WrestleMania and talk just nothing but wrestling. You can fanboy.
We'll talk
out for a
nothing
little
but
bit.
fantasy football.
Exactly. We'll switch it up. All right, Mr. Rank. Well, thank you so much again. You enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Thanks again for having me. Totally appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. You take care.
You too.
All right, once again, that was NFL Network's Adam Rank of Fantasy Live, Fantasy and Friends, and all things fantasy, even though we only talked about it for like 5 minutes of that. Well, I take it back. Man, we just got to talking. It was one of those really fun conversations. You book a person for like, and we can go 15, 20 minutes if we need a little extra, then we've got that cushion. We went for 36. It was a Omega and Jericho match is how long that segment was for. But no, it's great talking to Adam Rank and having him back on the show. That segment and every other segment and every other episode, if you've ever missed any and want to get caught up on the Fan Show, if you're making it a New Year's resolution to be part of Fan Nation and there's no easier way, then now you can subscribe through iTunes, SoundCloud, and iHeartRadio. That was one of the big platforms that we landed in 2017, carrying over into 2018. So whatever it is, your poison, however you listen and consume podcasts, there is a platform for you. So subscribe, iTunes, SoundCloud, or iHeartRadio, and you can always listen live on Spreaker.com, which is where I broadcast from, or thefanshow.com. Click Listen Live. All of these links are always available on my Twitter and Facebook page. If you go to Twitter, you can usually see a pinned tweet that has the links to the iTunes, SoundCloud, and iHeartRadio. And then, of course, the homepage of thefanshow.com is going to have all the links for the social media and how you can listen and subscribe as well. WBLZ Sports is where they replay the show the day after at 5 Eastern, 2 Pacific, so you can download that app or visit WBLZmedia.com to enjoy this show as well as many, many more of things of sports and nonsense. But before we wrap up this Thursday episode, I've got a name to add to the list of Fan Show and a Butt Fumble Award. So let's do the list of Fan Show first. So this was a long time coming. And by long time coming, I mean 17 weeks, because this is how long this team had this individual on their roster. Now, the person in question has already been put on the list, and they've received a Butt Fumble Award. There's not much more I can do on my end, but Funk and I last night talked about this person, and we scratched our head. How was this? How? All season long. So, Seattle, the Seahawks. Do you know what happens when you go and get Minnesota's trash, hoping it's going to be your treasure, and he just does what he did against you in Minnesota in every game that pretty much mattered and came down to a field goal? Do you know what happens when you don't learn from your own mistakes and cut him after he missed like his 5th field goal? But no, you keep him all season long. And although the Falcons needed to lose, you still needed to win, and you put it on the foot of Blair Walsh. Do you know what happens when you just don't get it, Seahawks? Do ya? You just made the list! That's right. Seattle Seahawks are the final on the list of Fan Show. That's right. They are the last name for 2017. It's been a great list this year. The first time that we've done the list of Fan Show, inspired by the list of Jericho. You don't want to be on it, man. You don't. But, oh man, we had some good ones, didn't we? All right, so Butt Fumble Award, normally we have nominees and we put it to a vote, but the last few weeks, and there's been a few times in other years and seasons that we've done this, that there just weren't enough worthy moments to merit nominees or voting. And I asked a few people, I was like, do we need to have a vote, or is this person the undisputed winner of the last week of the 2017 regular season Butt Fumble Award? And they said, no, you're absolutely right. So the last recipient of the Butt Fumble Award for the 2017 regular NFL season is Corey Coleman. That's right. You were on the team that happened to go 0-16, and it was 4th and 2, and the ball was right there. You could see it. You could see it so much that it smacked you right in the face mask. Would have been a first down. Could have possibly tied the game. Maybe won. Maybe you don't go 0-16, but instead you gave Cleveland a parade. Congratulations, Corey Coleman. You earned it. So that is the last Butt Fumble Award for the 2017 regular season. Don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter at FanShowOfficial. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/FanShowOfficial. Check out the Instagram and the Snapchat. Both are The Fan Show. And your home base for all things football and nonsense is thefanshow.com. So we've got a whole new week, 3 new episodes, and a whole set of new guests for you next week. We are just getting started in 2018, and we're going to keep this thing rolling. Big thanks to Adam Rank and all my guests this week. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the championship game. We'll be back next week with all new episodes of The Fan Show. So until then, best of luck to you and yours. Go Niners, and remember, it's all fun and games until you butt fumble. Good night, folks.
Do you remember the time that Mark Sanchez ran into his own player's butt? That was funny sports.
Thank you for having me on the show, man. I love the Fan Show.